Well, I guess this gives Mario Cristobal an extra reason to be glad that he left Oregon. I guess we can think of it that way. Welcome into the Voice of College Football, everybody. We're talking Miami, of course, with the rest of college football shaking right now. Mario and his coaching staff have their head down, and they're going straight forward with a lot of good recruiting and two of the best commits coming into the fold here in just the last few days. We got the wholesome one on the line, of course, on a Thursday night here on Miami Live. Wholesome one, how are you?
I'm doing well, Mark. I'm doing well, man. A lot has transpired since the last time we've been live. And what's funny is in there, I said towards the end, I'm like, next time we'll be live after we have our camp, our Legends camp, expect some commits. And it's just been going boom, 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 boom ever since then. So we'll get into it.
Here we go. Let's get into it. Leave your comments, questions there in the live chat. We'll get to it. All right, quarterback Jaden Rashada. He's a top 50 player in the country. Nathaniel Joseph, top 100 player in the country at wide receiver. Those are the two, obviously, everybody's talking about. But we also have here, just in the last 24 hours, Robert Stafford, who's listed as an athlete out of Melbourne, Florida, 12th rated in that category. Have you got a chance to see Stafford? And I haven't looked him up. I saw the commitment announcement, but I didn't look him up to see what positions he's playing in high school or what he's projected to be.
So what he has been playing has been like running back and wide receiver, punt return, kick returner. But he's also been transitioning to cornerback as of late. The conversation for what he's going to play at Miami or at the collegiate level, in my opinion, isn't even up to me. I'll just be honest with you. I trust this staff to figure out and put him in the right position. I think he'll be just fine at wide receiver as far as what he can bring to the table, but that's also our offensive coordinator. So he definitely had to put the check mark on not only offering him, but bringing him in. And they'll probably figure out what they want to do with him as a wide receiver. I like his film at wide receiver. I love his film at running back. He runs hard. Like, does not go down easy on contact, plays with high effort, running through tackles, extending for the end zone. Those are some of the things that I really like as his characteristic as a running back. But I know our running back room is really stacked, and it's going to get a little more stacked here pretty soon. But I think that him as a wide receiver prospect, pretty dang good. But I do know that there has been talks as far as the media on the University of Miami side of people who have been covering the program, that the talks of cornerback being in his immediate future.
Okay. Folks,
especially when our
about,
assistant defensive backs coach, DeMarcus Van Dyke, was the first person to tweet about him. So that might be a hint that he'll be playing defensive back here at Miami. So.
Okay. Robert Stafford commits today. Nathaniel Joseph 2 days ago. Of course, the flip from Clemson. It was assumed by many that he would come to Miami because of obviously those ties there. But at the same time, he did take a trip to Louisville, but he makes the commitment at 5'8", 170.
Yes. Now, let's be honest. You look at something like that and you're hoping that, I don't know if that guy should play here. Well, if that's your viewpoint, turn on the film. Turn on his film. This is a second opportunity that Miami would get at a Jeff Thomas kind of prospect. Electric in open space, easy at breaking tackles, plays very fluid and natural. And the way that he plays wide receiver and running back and returner all over the football field, the way that Ray plays. So Ray is his nickname out of Miami Edison. Uncle Luke is his head coach down there at Edison. So he's a big-time prospect. I mean, you talk about somebody who's top 20 at their position nationally, they're pretty damn good. But this young man is it. He's a baller. And, Mark, what we have been missing at Miami, in my opinion, is not only bringing in these kind of guys, but letting them play the way that got them to the dance. Just letting them play football, not like, oh, you bring them in and no, you got to play the Miami way. And no, you don't get the trash talk. And no, you don't get to get up and get fired up. You know, they kind of tried to talk that out of our players. Plenty of rumors about what was happening on Green Tree practice field under the last two regimes, not just the previous one, but also under Mark Richt, where the thought of we recruit these Dade County guys and we want the dog to come to Miami, but they don't want them to play that way. You know, and be confident, act like you've been here before, shut up and hand the ref the ball. That's not Miami. Now, doing things to where we get penalties or doing things outside the line of respecting your opponent, that's not what we want to do. But if you want to get fired up about making a big tackle, if you want to get fired up about a big first down or telling somebody they ain't going to be able to cover you all day long, that needs to be brought back. And not only doing that, but doing it on the football field. And Ray specifically is one of those prospects that he is a dog. And he's going to tell you about it, and he's going to run right past you the next play, and you may not be able to catch him again after that one. That's what we got to bring to the table, is these young men who know that they are Canes at heart, and they get a chance to come here and then play like a Cane. Stephen talks, Mark, of the previous staff not even answering his phone calls, ignoring the young man. He was going to go to a top 3 program in the country. But we, hometown team, his favorite team growing up, wouldn't even recruit him. Now, whether they want to talk about if he was too much of a dog, if they want to talk about the fact that he's too small, whatever their excuse was, you don't allow a prospect like this in your backyard at a feeder school like Miami Edison has been to the University of Miami over their time under former head coach Corey Bell, who was my head coach at American City High School. You need to be able to allow those guys to come in, and super excited about them. I don't want to damper or down talk, but that needs to be put out there, that they were not even recruiting this young man. And a couple rumors are reason why, but one of them was size. And that's sad because some of the best Miami receivers are sub 6 foot. And if you use the young men the right way, that doesn't matter, especially if you're talking about they have the speed and the big time playmaking ability that Ray has.
So, wholesome one, if I said, okay, sheet of paper right here, want you to jot down every position on the field and give me your ideal size. I'm sure you could do that. You would say center. I would, the perfect center, of course.
6'2",
boom.
6'3".
Yeah. Boom. Size, weight, do. That doesn't prove anything. That just means that's a starting point. And that's obviously, that would be, the ideal. At what point do you start to kind of shy away from someone, regardless of their skills, their speed, their strength, whatever, for the position?
If what they're putting on tape really jumps off the screen to you. For example, Ernie Sims, and I don't talk about Tallahassee. Ernie Sims was what, all of 5'10", 10 and a half. There's nowhere in the world you couldn't tell me if you were to turn on his high school film that it wouldn't jump off to you. Okay. Now, the other thing is, once you get them on your campus, how are they built? We're talking about a guy that just happens to be a little short, but his frame could easily hold 200 pounds, 205. You look at a guy like Brashard Smith, who's all of maybe 5'10", but he's 200 pounds. You look at Xavier Restrepo, who's 5'9", he's 200, 210 pounds. Okay. The long are the days of us bringing in the 5'8", 5'9"ers, but then they're like 165, 170, even after being in the program for a couple of years. That part is going to be behind us. But if we're talking about high school evaluation, some of those things come into part. Can this man's physique be developed? Can a young man be developed to a higher level? Whether that be you got a 5 foot like Trajan Bandy. There's nothing wrong with Trajan Bandy being on your team. There's probably nothing wrong with him being an outside corner if he can play to that level, although he was 5'9". But if you watch the film of him in the freshman and sophomore year, it didn't matter. He was a big-time playmaker. He had high football IQ. And when the ball was in his vicinity, he made plays on the football. So we're just going to get a 6'1" guy out there just to do. He may not be as fast. He may not be a good football player, but he's 6'1". No, you don't want, and that's where you have to have the talent evaluation. Not only evaluating this young man as a high school prospect, but how can we use him here in our program, and can he transition well, smoothly? And when you have speed, again, Jeff Thomas, 5'9", Trajan Bandy, 5'9". Those are two recent Miami Hurricanes that had some success when used properly and when had the right strength and conditioning program. They were pretty good college football players. So I'm not saying that we had a first rounder. Was that last season, the year before? Florida wide receiver, Kadarius Toney.
Yeah.
And I know you're not. You're just asking so that I could give the answer. But
yeah.
For those people who are sizists, you have to be able to have that dynamic ability that can transcend the one thing that people would kind of turn away from. If you're a middle line, I mean, this guy's a Hall of Famer, but he likes to play the underdog role. Ray Lewis. I mean, Ray is like 6'1", 6'2". And he was like a $190 coming out of high school as a middle linebacker and played at Miami probably as high as 212, 218. He was a speed guy. That was his thing. And some people then felt like, until they saw him play or they heard him barking and they felt him hit. And they were like, okay, all right. that guy can play middle linebacker. So those are just a couple examples to where the size, if that is down here, then you must have other things that brings you up here. Elite speed is probably the other thing. Because if you are a 5'9", but you do have a high football IQ and you are a hard work ethic guy, and you're still like 4'8", 40, it'll probably still be a no. But if you are 5'9" and you have the high football IQ and you're out here blazing early 4.4s and late 4.3s, there's a place for you on majority of Power 5 football fields.
We've seen recent quarterbacks succeed in the NFL. I know some people would knock Baker Mayfield, but obviously he's an all-time great college quarterback, and he's a decent NFL quarterback. Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's one of the greats of all time. And sure, would it be better if he was 6'3"? Yeah, but nobody's going to say we don't want Russell Wilson to be our quarterback. He's amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
Got the Wholesome One here, and here's the deal tonight, folks. The Wholesome One hustles to get here as soon as possible, and most weeks, it doesn't matter. He gets here, we start, we can go for an hour plus. I'm not able to do that tonight. Got to get off here at 9 o'clock Eastern time, so leave the comments and questions here in the live chat. And, I asked this question along the lines of guys progressing and developing within the program.
Mm-hmm.
I asked this question a couple of weeks ago of who you thought was the biggest talent waste that you've seen in 15 or 20 years in this program. I'm going to ask you the opposite. I'm going to ask you who came into this program that you didn't have a whole lot of hope for, whether it was because of their high school tape or they played their freshman season, didn't show you a whole lot, and probably surprised you the most in terms of how they progressed throughout their career.
Wow. That's a great one to throw. I mean, usually I'm about my wits. And boom, I got an answer for you.
If you don't, that's okay. Got plenty of other directions to go.
Gotta have a question. Gotta have at least one for you. This is low-hanging fruit, but I'm gonna take it. Mike Harley. I did not think much of Mike Harley coming out of St. Thomas Aquinas. Again, he was what I was saying, 5'9" on a good day, 5'8". But he's like 4'5'1", and I'll probably being nice with these times, 4'9". He didn't have like this world-class speed. And he didn't do much then as a freshman in 17. He didn't do much as a 18, didn't do much in 19, and then 20. And he just took off. I was so happy for him. I'm like, hey, good job, man. Because you saw the effort towards the end that he was starting to put in. He was starting to publicly reach out to these elite wide receivers that have come through Miami, asking for workouts. And you saw him starting to get a little better build in it. You're like, okay, all right. I like this. You heard about his leadership starting to come through it. And then you saw him play. And in 2020, he really surprised me with some really, really nice play coming out of 2020. So to be honest with you, I would say Mike Harley. No disrespect, again, it's just my personal opinion. I didn't think much of him, and then for him to come out and be, set record his last year at Miami for receptions in the game and career receptions, and I think he's also top 5 in receiving yards, although it took 5 years, but top 5 in receiving yards. I mean, I would have never, ever guessed that if I were to look at him at the beginning of his career signing with Miami post the bowl game against West Virginia. I mean, he was even public. Whoever wins this bowl game, Miami versus West Virginia, I'm going. So that should tell you what we were looking at was a guy who's a Power 5 player, but not. He's going to end his career in the top 5 receiving yards in Miami Hurricanes history, and he did. And he has. I give a lot of respect to him because he created that into being a reality. It wasn't like he walked in and had the athleticism of JT4 and the size of Lawrence Cager and the playmaking ability of Ahmad Richards. He had none of those things. He just put in the work and then got the results towards the end there. So definitely much respect to him.
Got the wholesome one talking about Miami football here at the Voice of College Football. Before we get to the other player who committed this week, a lot of talk in the chat, obviously, concerning what happened today. The big announcement confirmed USC, UCLA to the Big Ten. I would have told you up until a couple hours ago that the biggest movement in the history of college football, is what the SEC pulled off last year with Oklahoma and Texas. Not that USC and UCLA are bigger brands or better programs or anything combined compared to Texas and Oklahoma, but the reason I think this is more substantial is, number one, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 have been partners, and that's ripped apart. This is ripping apart probably the Rose Bowl. There's probably no longer a Big Ten Pac-12 Rose Bowl anymore. That's done. There's no way the Pac-12 can service that type of elite, top end teams for it to be the Rose Bowl anymore. A lot of, and because of now rumors that this could affect Oregon, Washington, other teams leaving the Pac-12 going to, this may not be over. So if this calms down and this is the end of it, which I don't think so. I don't think it is. But if it is the end of it, then the SEC and the Big Ten are way out in front of everybody else. If it continues, then we could be down the road of the SEC and the Big Ten just step for step, counter punch, bam, 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 just scarfing up teams. So you as a Miami fan, do you want to see the ACC bulk up, go out, get whoever they need to get, whether that's West Virginia, whether that's whoever, and make some moves? Or if the SEC is going to keep this thing going and counter the Big Ten, you have any issue with the Miami Hurricanes playing in the SEC?
It's been one of the things I've wanted for a while. But yeah, wow, that is breaking news on MarkRogersTV Miami. It's official. Just their entrance to the Big Ten was just accepted. Wow. I don't even know how to. I don't know how to feel about that. It doesn't feel right. It just doesn't sit right.
USC's in the
my
Big
heart.
Ten. Yes, USC and UCLA are in the Big Ten.
That doesn't sound like Big Ten football. But Mark, I try not to speak when I don't have enough evidence to back up how I feel. But man, in all honesty, I think this is in response to what happened in 2020 when it came to the Pac-12, when they were not for football. They did not try to work to get football played. Similar, I mean, the Big Ten did the same thing, did it not? To the point where Ohio State had to go out and basically be the forefront. Like, no, this is happening. We're doing this. Get in line.
Yeah, what was interesting about that is I just think everybody's cards were on the table and we got a real good read into these conferences during the pandemic. And the read was that the SEC said they didn't ignore the pandemic. They said, we're going to get all our guidelines in place, our health. We're going to figure out every best precaution to go through, but we're playing football. So we're going to do both. We're going to do first class health care and guidelines and protection, and we're going to do all that, but we're playing football. And the ACC kind of jumped in right alongside them. The Big 12 took kind of a few weeks, and then they were right there with them too. They were then they did it. The Pac-12 was on the other end of the spectrum where they were just like, we're not playing football. And there just wasn't a mindset to play football. And then they started playing really late in the season. The Big 10, I thought, was the most interesting because it really showed the struggle, the conflict within that conference, because the academic, the elite, the academic, the administrators running these universities, they were with the Pac-12. Mm-hmm. But the Midwest is football country. And the coaches, the players, the fans went to the Big Ten headquarters. They rallied, they took petitions, they campaigned, they, made every possible statement to say, we're playing football, and they won.
I made my tweet, and I stand by my tweet. USC is serious about football now, and the Pac-12 has shown that they are not. Now, them joining the Big 12 to me would have made a lot more sense. Hey, join the Big 12. You're in Southern California. Kind of like it would be a little easier to go right down there. And they need a little bit of a boost losing Texas and OU. It would be perfect for you to transition right into Big 12. They care about football too. Obviously, again, I know California plays great football, but that area of the country,
they're going to make a lot more money playing in the Big Ten.
Oh, yeah, true. So are we just going to be like a 3-team powerhouse? Because now it's like, so should the ACC just like join the SEC and we just become like the Southern Coastal Conference, SCC, Southern Coastal Conference, and then have the Big Western Conference and the Big 12, I guess. the Big 18, and they just I don't know how to feel about when that text came through earlier, and I was just like, oh, okay, that might be a rumor, just like the rumor was that Clemson and Tallahassee were on the list of teams that the SEC wanted to add, okay, to the SEC. I mean, I don't know if I would want Miami to join the Big Ten. Academically, it would be a perfect fit, but I just don't. I don't care about travel, but there are some fans who use that as a big excuse for the whole We got great planes. Just make sure if we're going to travel that far, stretch them out a little bit. If we feel as though the ACC isn't serious and we don't think that they're going to get a big boost, sure. I mean, I wouldn't mind having Ohio State and playing Michigan and playing at the big house, and playing Michigan State and playing USC. I wouldn't mind it. It would take some getting used to, and we'll always worry like, oh, this feels weird. I mean, even you as a Big Ten guy, I don't know if Coral Gables, Florida screams Big Ten ball.
No,
I mean,
it would be weird. But man, you talk about some matchups, boy.
Miami, Michigan State, Miami, Nebraska. That rivalry would come back. Miami playing Northwestern. That'd be kind of cool. I wouldn't mind playing Northwestern.
Now, I know we're football all the time, and anytime anyone brings up other sports, I shoot them down and say, we just talk about football. That's all we care about. But in just one thought about the rest of these student athletes, if these conferences really come together like this, it's different than football for these other sports. You know, baseball players are playing 45 or 50 games. The Big Ten now goes from LA to New York City. They're not traveling out there for one game. They're like, if you play for USC, you play baseball for USC, you're going to Maryland, you're going to Rutgers to New Jersey, you're going to Penn State, you're going to, and it's not like with Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC, you can say, okay, we got 16 teams. Now you can divide it into pods and you can stay in your little geographic region and you can just be Arkansas, LSU, Texas A&M or whatever. And and then you occasionally have to jump over to South Carolina to play a game. The Big Ten, USC and UCLA, they're on an island. They got it. Everybody they play, they got to all the way across the country.
I mean, could you imagine being Rutgers, having to travel that far to get your ass whooped? I mean, we're all a little angry here, but we got to go to play Lincoln Riley's USC. Again, Mark, it's the way it's going. I think the only way to fix this is we have to get a college football commission. Because if we do not, what's happening right now, as far as the big money grab, jumping in, we need somebody to walk in and say, hell to the no. This is not happening. This ain't happening. You going over here, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna come to a conclusion, and we're gonna figure this damn thing out, because this is not it.
Well, you just hit on the complete bottom line of all this. The complete bottom line of all of this. And if anybody's interested in more talk about this kind of stuff, we went on for like 3 hours today. We had over 800 people online. We were on for over 3 hours. I had some great guests. Folks, check out the live stream. I posted it on the USC channel and every Big Ten channel and on the main channel. So check it out. And that's the bottom line to me. That was my bottom line answer to anyone who said, why is this going on? And this is crazy. And is this good for college football? Or they would say, is this good? And I'd say, well, it depends on your perspective. Is it good for the Big Ten? Yes. Is it good for USC? Yes. We keep forgetting UCLA. Yes, because they're going to make more money. Is this good for college football? In my estimation, no, it's not good for college football. But the problem is exactly what you're saying. It's not the NFL. In the NFL, you got a commissioner, you got owners that look out for the whole sport. They don't look out just for themselves. They figure out what's best for the whole sport. We don't have that in college football. Everybody looks out for themselves. That's why you have teams jumping all over the place, grabbing money or getting booted from conferences or whatever. Okay.
Let's be honest, there's not much Miami news. We could spend the next 10 minutes just talking about this before you have to go. In Mark Rogers' opinion, if you could keep it to 5 or 10 bullet points, what could we do to fix this?
Well, you need a commissioner.
Okay, so
It's not going to get
yeah,
fixed because every conference can do whatever it wants. And we saw that in the pandemic. So in the pandemic, before the pandemic, it was always thought the NCAA rules college football and they run college football. But then we saw in the pandemic, every conference just does whatever it wants to. And we're seeing that now. So there needs to be a commissioner of college football.
mm-hmm. How do you get that? What I'm saying is what are the parameters that we would have to do to get? Because I mean, there's probably plenty of online petitions and phone calls of people going off, but how do you go from this to not waking up and seeing Miami and Tallahassee are coming together and joining the SEC in 2025? Like, how do you get to that point before this just is like, all right, either it's monopoly or it's not. Either you're with the big boys or you're not. Because this is starting to feel like we're going to have two mega conferences go at it. And the winner of the mega conferences are going to be the ones to play each other in the championship game.
And before I answer that question or attempt to, because that's a difficult question, I'll say this. This is, in my estimation, this is why it hurts college football. Because once they kick off at noon, week 1, we all get to see guys run into each other, and that's what we're looking for, and that's why we watch this, because we love watching football games. So that's going to be the same. We're still going to see really great football players wearing uniforms we love and wearing uniforms we hate. We're going to be passionate about it. So once the games play, once they're on the field, they're going to be great games. What hurts is, to me, off the field, college football is about culture. The Big Ten has a culture. The SEC has a culture. The West Coast has a culture. It's about different kinds of food, different kinds of ethnicities, different kinds of music, different kinds of weather, different kinds of terrain, cities, suburbs, country, cornfield. All that builds into the fabric of the game, and why we like to see the best team in the Big Ten play the best team in the Pac-12 in the Rose Bowl. And we like to see these teams come from different areas of the country and bring what they've got, because the culture's ingrained. It's the fabric of the sport. And when you've got Nebraska and Rutgers in the same conference, you've completely disintegrated that. And now you got USC and Rutgers in the same conference, and it doesn't even matter. When UCF's in Orlando and they're playing in the Big 12. The Big 12 is supposed to be the Dust Bowl, the Midwest, Kansas, Missouri, Texas, Oklahoma, not UCF, Disney. They don't belong in the Big 12. Like, you've completely shredded the fabric of college football and the traditions and the grassroots.
I agree. I mean, that's what it felt like it should have been. And it was starting maybe 10 years ago to start drifting a little bit differently. I think the first big thing that enough people don't bring up, but it was the first time where I noticed that this was a little weird. Nebraska leaving the Big 12 to go to the Big 10. Now, it's not that big of a move. It was, I mean, they're right dead center. So it was just, you battle these teams at the top of your state, not these teams to the east and the south of your state. And they culturally kind of fit, big country boys, O-line, running down your throat, 3-4 defense, elite defensive tackle play, it kind of fit, but it didn't, and it went from, in theory, something fitting, and then something really being a part of the fabric. And that is just like what Herschel Bradley is saying, Penn State, USC, could you not be two polar opposites or something like that? Nebraska playing at UCLA.
As an out-of-conference game, shoot, actually, they played several times in the 80s, but it was an out-of-conference game, not a...
Right. Not the same thing.
Just like when you're talking about Miami playing Michigan and Michigan State and Ohio State as non-conference games, those are amazing games, but that's going to... if that would ever happen, then I'm going to feel like, Miami and Minnesota, a conference game.
It'd be cool for me though. I'd be able
well, yeah.
Drift on
for
over
you.
there. But, it's sad, man. And it's honestly, I used to be one of those people that was for like the different things and adding different stuff to college football and throwing a little spice and stuff. But this is not it. Like Texas going and OU going to the SEC, I didn't really wasn't too against that. But I did. Plenty of people warned me about this becoming opening of Pandora's box, and you're not going to like what comes out of Pandora's box. I think they were right. They were definitely right. This is definitely not what I envisioned to be college football. Again, who gives a crap what Host Holloway has to say? I'm just a guy, but at the end of the day, I don't feel like this is cool, fair, fun, none of that. And that was one thing about college football at its essence, is that you could stand there and be really proud of the champion of college football majority of times. I don't know if we could feel the same way, especially with the way the playoffs started to act, and we're starting to have two people from the same conference in the play. It's just not been good. And I think if anything, yes, you can argue they were the two best teams in college football. I get that. I don't want to go on a long rant about that. And I understand that we don't want to start with the whole, this is how it used to be back in my day, because then guys like me wouldn't even be able to cover the game, let alone play the game, if we want to get that far deep into how things used to be.
Yeah.
But let's be honest. There's a reason why 1990s and early 2000s ball is looked at as like the galore of college football, because it in all honesty probably was to a lot of people, because certain helmets played certain helmets year in and year out. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about monopoly. It wasn't about a hierarchy. It felt like it was about what happened between those white lines, and whether you agree with everything that happened between those white lines, the outcomes, you knew it was played out on the football field. I can't say that about the last 5 years of college football. I don't know if everything has been honestly just played out in between the white lines.
So basically, I'm just pushing back records that I have to do. So I one thing, well, I don't want to take us in a bad direction here, because I want to squeeze this as dry as we need to. But I did want to get your feelings about the three opponents that Miami's been designated by the ACC to play every year. Did want to get to that too. Here's one thing that I don't know. I got to think somebody's thinking about it, because I'm not the smartest guy in the room by any stretch of the imagination. But the larger you make these conferences, and if you're playing for a conference championship, let's say you got 24 teams in a conference, there's talk about 24. Well, how do you decide the conference champion? Because you can only play so many games. You can only play 9 at the most. Right. Let's say, we stay with the 12 game, even if it's raised up to 9 games for everybody playing conference. You are severely increasing the odds that you're going to have ties that you can't
undo,
break logically. You can always have a tie-breaking system and say, well, Miami scored, at a net differential of 152 and Clemson was 148, so they get to go to the ACC championship game. But then nobody wants to. You're going to have the bigger the conference is, the less teams are going to be playing each other. And the more that you're going to have teams tying for first and second place that didn't play each other. So how do you decide who goes to the conference championship game in a reasonable way?
Mm-hmm. I wish I had an answer for you. I think that was more of a statement than a question, but I wish I had an answer for you, Mark. I don't know what these people are, I don't know what's come over college ball. I don't know if it's just gotten to the point where they're just like, How about we just continue to throw as much crap on the wall as we possibly can to piss everybody off? See which one pisses off the people the most, and then ignore that and fix all the other stuff that no one cares about underneath here. You know how the government does. Oh, wow. Oh man, that really pissed everybody off. Let's talk about gas prices. Like after something crazy that just happened is the pinnacle and what's really a big issue. And then they're like, oh, we're sorry about the gas prices. Sorry about cost of living, inflation. We'll talk about that. It's sick, Mark. And the reason why I'm always asking how do we fix it is because my hope is that somebody who's related to somebody happens to be just going through MarkRogersTV or types in on the YouTube how to fix college football. And I'm hoping MarkRogersTV can come up with a 50-minute video that would explain how we can get this in order again. Maybe you can come up with the answers because I don't know. And Mark, you might get like 50,000 views if you do a video like that. I don't know how we do it anymore. Do we wipe it clean and make everyone independent? You schedule your own thing, and then the season after that we do it geographically all over again. I don't know.
So the problem, and you brought up the government, so I'm going to use the government as an example.
Sure.
Let's say, and nobody leave anything in the chat on this, let's say the government screwed up. And I'm not talking about any particular president. I'm just talking about our generic government, regardless of who's in charge. Let's just say it's screwed up. And we're having this conversation and saying, this government's screwed up. Now, how do we fix it? Well, it's kind of hard to fix when there's nobody above them. Like somebody would have to go in there and convince them you're screwed up, so you need to change. So in this situation, we would need somebody to go in and pull the 5 conference commissioners, or maybe all 10, but the 5 main ones, pull them together and say, this isn't good for the sport. And even though you're making more money because Oklahoma and Texas are on board, and you're making more money because USC and UCLA, you understand that you're going to kill the goose that laid the golden egg. You're going to drive this down a path that is going to piss off half the nation, and you're killing your consumer base. So can we agree on let's look at the entire map of college football and the various universities and the geography and everything involved, the rivalries and everything, and divide the top 64 well, shoot, I did it about 5 years ago, I'd say. I divided the top 72 teams in the country into 6 12-team conferences. And they all geographically made sense. Like, for example, my ACC was the current ACC 14, but I took out Boston College, they don't belong. Syracuse, they don't belong. Pitt, they don't belong. And I think I booted Louisville, which takes it down to 10. I included UCF, and I wouldn't make this move now. Understand this was about maybe more like 7 or 8 years ago when they were playing some good football, but USF, and I brought those two teams from Florida into the ACC, and that was my 12-team ACC. And then I built a conference of the Northeast. Penn State, Pitt, Syracuse, Louisville, Army,
Rutgers.
Navy,
Yeah,
Rutgers, Maryland.
Yeah.
Boom. And so
I mean, and what's so hard about that? The Northeast Conference, the NEC. What's so hard? That sounds amazing. And then you tap into their market and think that's where, because I'm big on conference realignment. I love it. I think it's really cool to hear all the back inner workings as to what happens. Because me and you both know, Mark, and everybody listening to this, it ain't about football right now. It's about how many eyeballs, ratings, and money that you can get.
Sure.
That's what it is. And I wouldn't even be surprised, Mark, if we don't find out that the Big Ten reached out to Miami and Tallahassee. Because being able to get those big state markets eyes on your program. So the Big Ten may say, you know what, we got the California schools, let's go after the Florida schools. the ACC ain't doing you guys right. How about you come in here, you join us, and you be a part of what we're doing moving forward. I mean, I want to hear them out, Mark, because I mean, joining the SEC sounds good until you go from us not even being able to win the Coastal to us being like 5th or 6th in the SEC East. You know, it can get pretty bad real fast in that conference.
This is no slight to Miami or Florida State, because the Big Ten should love to have Miami and Florida State because of a lot of obvious things. It's obvious. But if I'm the Big Ten, you know the reason I would even more so want to bring in Miami and Florida State?
What, recruiting?
Florida. Yes, Florida high school football.
Right. Getting in that recruiting.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because then, shoot, Ohio State's already doing well in Florida, but now, oh, you're going to play Miami and Florida State, and you're down here, and we're part of the Big Ten, and that's going to lift the whole conference.
I mean, it might be the shot in the arm to balance college football there. And again, I hate having to tell this guy he was right. One of my good friends, Mr. Rubicon, has this like diabolical thought process of college football. He's always on it. He's always on the channel. He's like, you're either going to be in the SEC or you're not in the SEC. If you're not in the SEC, you're going to be on the outskirts of college football. No one's ever going to watch you. It's going to be 1 or 2 mega conferences. And I always would tell him that he's just crazy and just stop listening to him when he goes on this rant. And now it's like, is he right? Is he right that it's starting to feel like you're either going to be a part of this or you're going to be on the outside? And someone put in the chat earlier, oh, is that it? Yeah, that's the question I was going to say. It was a good question and a dono attached to it. Should Miami, Clemson, and Tallahassee leave the ACC for greener turf, meaning the SEC or the Big Ten right now? Because, I mean, would it make sense to go save the Big 12, Mark? I don't think it would make sense to do that. Just stay in the ACC if you're going to do that.
Yes.
Or make the ACC great again. That's a different MAGA.
Clemson, Florida State, and Miami are better than anything in the Big 12. I'm not talking about right this second on the field, but I'm talking about potential, history, all of it. The Big 12 is for me,
for lack of a better term, is dead.
A fun conference. It's going to be a fun conference to watch, but there's no elite program there. They're in trouble. They're not going to have anyone to play in the college football playoff that's going to be able to compete. You can't point to any team in the Big 12 that's ever been elite for a period of time, maybe for one season.
Oh, you're talking about that's left right now if you're counting
that's left
in the SEC.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because they joined when? 23 or 25?
It's supposed to be 25, but I am guessing that's going to get moved up.
You know, to answer the question, for me, I would want us to stay and stay up for the ACC. But in all honesty, it's starting to feel like you're either in the Southeastern Conference or you're part of the Big Ten Conference, which is probably going to turn out to be the Big 16 here real soon. You're either North or you're South. That sounds really bad out loud, actually. That sounds like something else that happened in our history. That's, oh, wow.
Well, yeah, that's not a good thought from that standpoint. But, and then if this continues, the Big Ten may, if needed, go after the Big 12.
That's what I was going to say. Would it just make sense to say, you know what, SEC, 2 stone cold starters for you. We're going to just get everything around you to join us and push you out. You know what? Like, oh.
But I don't think they want to mess with the bottom feeders in the Big. Like, I think they'd want to go over after Oklahoma State, Baylor, and then, you know, the rest of that becomes like some kind of super group of 5 conference with the Mountain West. You see the Mountain West join with Colorado and Texas Tech and
it's starting to get weird, Mark. And that's why I said before we get into this weird monopoly, this weird, I don't want to be a part of what this is, which they're gonna have to come up with something else, because what we're drifting into, Mark, is not college football. You talk about what name, image, and likeness, the way people are treating name, image, and likeness, weird conferences alignment and disbandment. It doesn't feel like college football anymore. And I never thought I would say that. But this is what happens when the NCAA drags their feet and hasn't addressed certain things for as long as they did. And allegedly been in bed with one conference for 10 years. You had to have seen it coming that eventually little brother is going to get big and strong enough to hit you back in the face. And if he can't do it, he's going to get all his friends. And they're all going to band together and beat the holy hell out of you. And that's what's starting to come up. If they don't get a governing body together, it's starting to feel like this is not going to be good. You might still have a good, like you said, when it comes to just playing football and Mark Rogers being able to discuss football and the great regular season matchups, and that's going to still be cool. Being able to see certain helmets go at it in the regular season for a conference game at face value sounds pretty cool. But the thought of USC playing Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game because USC beat Michigan, that doesn't sound right. It just doesn't. Now, USC beat Michigan in the Rose Bowl because Ohio State's one of the best teams in college football, and they went to the playoffs. Okay, baby, I'm down for that. I'm with you with that one. That sounds cool.
Yeah,
I'm all for it. But what they're bringing up and cooking up right now just doesn't roll off the tongue well, man.
and like you say, if this keeps going, you're going to have some really good football programs that are going to be in 6th, 7th place in their conference. And if they don't mind that and their fan base doesn't mind that, somebody's got to lose these games. When the SEC's got 16 teams and only like 3 of them are really that bad, and the rest of them are pretty damn good, if not really good. Well, you put all 16 of those in a row right now, take out Vandy, Missouri, South Carolina. You're talking
Georgia
like,
Tech. Yeah, you start. Yeah, Mark, it's gonna get to the haves and the have-nots, and that's the thing about life. No matter how we try to shake it, sometimes, if you don't have the right people and good-hearted people at heart, changing and making changes to what's happening in life, the hierarchy will always stay the same. The haves will always have, and the have-nots will always have not, until you find the right way to get it fixed, man.
And that's what I was thinking about concerning all this NIL. Like, one of people's major questions, and mine too, was, okay, who's this really going to help that's not real good right now, but might be able to push themselves higher? And then who's on top right now that might not be able to keep up? And I still don't know the total answer to that question, but it only makes sense to me that there are going to be examples of both of those, but generally the ones that are the haves versus the have-nots are going to stay the same, because the same boosters that were given all that money to the school so they could build super big football facilities and do all the things that they were doing and maybe including paying players under the table. Well, they're the same boosters that are going to give into NIL now. So I don't expect it to change much because those programs already had a ton of money.
Yeah, I don't. Again, man, I'm laughing to keep from crying. This is sad. This is genuinely. It might honestly be a really sad day in college football. We may look back to these last 2 off seasons and just go, what's going on? And the fact that no one has, and again, I don't know how we would anoint or appoint or vote for this. I don't know if the president, like if we were to have a president of college football, I don't know if we're going to do it through electoral college, if, different states that aren't a part, if they don't bring enough, do their vote value as much as the other people's vote based on population, ratings. I don't know how you're going to do it. But someone needs to be appointed. And then again, they need to have a committee that they answer to, so that we can hope that this person doesn't get corrupt by one group or one governing body.
Sure. Yeah, it's like the commissioner of the NFL. He's held accountable by the owners. The owners aren't going to let him do. They have to vote on everything. So it's a.
Oh, would it be the ADs? All 133 ADs put their vote in for a particular person, but then what will be the point of having conferences? So do we shoot? Because each conference already has a president, right?
Sure. Yes. Commissioner. Yeah.
A commissioner, right? A commissioner for each conference.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying the way things are structured right now, somebody has to convince the conference commissioners that this is needed.
Right.
Otherwise, they run their own conference and nobody's above them. So that's what happened during the pandemic. The SEC did what it wanted to do. The Pac-12 did what it wanted to do, and they were completely on opposite ends of the spectrum. There wasn't a commissioner or a committee to say, no, this is the national plan. We're going to have, make sure we hit all these CDC guidelines, and we're going to do X, Y, and Z, but we're still looking to play football, and this is what we're doing.
I'm sorry, college football. I'm sorry. I'm hoping that the Miami Hurricanes fans here understand that we talked about Miami. Of course, this influences Miami, but this was rough.
Miami's in a good position, though. Miami's not going to get hurt by this. They're wanted. Miami's going to be wanted. So
which one makes the better decision in your opinion? Go north or go to Big Ten or go to the SEC?
I think you should be in the SEC if you're going to be anywhere.
Right. I mean, if Kentucky and Vandy could do it, we could do it, right? Missouri can do it. And I don't know if the Gators would like that much, but I could give a crap less what they have to say.
Well, Texas A&M didn't want Texas in, and they voted them down, but they got outvoted 11-1 or whatever it was, 13-1. So it didn't matter. So real quick, I did want to get your thoughts on the 3 designated opponents.
Oh, the pod. Yeah. So I love the Boston College thing.
Okay.
Boston College, I like that. Some people in the Miami Hurricanes fan base didn't like it. I think it's a great market. We at the University of Miami, not the football program, the University of Miami has hundreds and hundreds of graduates from the Northeast. A lot of those rich people send their kids down to go to school at the University of Miami. So from that area, from Boston, from that rich, pompous area, they send their offspring down to the University of Miami. We even used to recruit that area really heavy with some great players, even drifting over to like the Pittsburgh side of it too.
You seem to grab the best player in Connecticut pretty often, whether it's Van Dyke or there's somebody else out there right now that you guys either. I know Cam and I were talking about somebody last night or the week before. There was another top player in the state of Connecticut that was on Miami's. I forget. Anyway.
Okay. But I like the Boston College thing. Besides the Flutie Hail Mary, we also had the Ed Reed interception to save the 2001 season. We've had some pretty good. Duke Johnson's
history goes
first
back.
collegiate game was against Boston College in 2012. Almost, it would be 10 years to the day on September 4th when we played Bethune-Cookman. It will be 10 years ago that Duke Johnson introduced himself to college football playing at Boston College. So, I mean, just one of those weird things that I know off the top of my head, which is weird, whatever. I like it. Not saying that I like it over other teams that could have been there. Like, I wanted Virginia Tech. I really wanted Virginia Tech or VTech out of respect for now my good friend correcting me. It's not Tech, it's Virginia Tech to say the whole thing. No problem. I will respect you because we're cool. We respect each other. I got you. I'll say Virginia Tech. No problem. I wanted Virginia Tech. Georgia Tech can kick rocks. I wanted Virginia Tech.
Miami and Virginia Tech have the longest history of having important games against each other, going back to the Big East, more than anybody else.
Okay.
They just do, right?
Right. I feel you. Besides Tallahassee, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
But you're saying that's like a built-in rivalry. So yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
that's a
you don't
given.
really count them. That goes unsaid. Yeah. Next to Tallahassee, I would say Virginia Tech is definitely second. So I'm happy that we got both those teams. Well, we didn't really get Tallahassee, but we're going to play them every year. Because our three is Louisville, Boston College, and Tallahassee, right?
Yeah. Louisville's got nobody. Like, there's nobody that they have to play, that they have to be matched up against. So theirs turned out to be probably a bunch of placeholders. Like, the way I looked at this was the ACC was going to say, these are the games that have to be played. Miami and Florida State have to play. UNC and NC State have to play. There's
Clemson,
a few other
Tallahassee. Ones. Yeah, right. There's some big ones historically that you got to have happen on that.
Yeah. And then after that, okay, what makes sense? Like Tobacco Road. They tried to keep that together as much as possible. UNC, NC State, Wake, Duke. Who am I missing? Wake, Duke. Yeah, probably pretty much those four. You can see they've got them together about as much as you possibly can. And then the rest of it after that was going to just be about, okay, let's not make it any too hard for anybody or too soft for anyone. Let's try to keep it balanced. And the rest is just going to be placeholders. And maybe there was some thought about, I think they kept, Pitt and Syracuse, maybe Syracuse, Boston College, that Northeast contingent together. And then you just have a bunch of open spots that you just have to make sure it works.
Yeah, I like the pod. Again, having Tallahassee on the schedule was going to be a given. The question were the other two. My pod that I wanted was UNC, Virginia Tech, Tallahassee. Those are the three I wanted. I got one of those three. I think the UNC thing comes from not beating them the last 4 years, but historically, it's not really a big rivalry there. They tried to create it, and Butch Davis embedded in their, like the DNA in their program 10, 12 years ago when he was their head coach. We don't lose to these people. And he made it a big thing like, no, we hate Miami. And I think their coaches after him kind of kept that going, but and in the grand scheme of things, if that game isn't played, it doesn't. But for me personally, playing Virginia Tech, whether they were here or at Lane Stadium, was something I want to see every year. Because I know I'm going to get the Tallahassee game, but Virginia Tech in the ACC is the second biggest rivalry that we had. So that was a little disappointing, but bringing in Louisville, some people don't really like it and feel like we're kind of validating Louisville and giving them a good place of recruitment. I think it is a nudge in the right direction as far as giving us a chance to kind of beat on them a little bit. Not saying it's a given game. They're a tough out, especially playing there on a Saturday night or a Thursday night. But they can push us, they can test us, but I still don't think under Mario Cristobal that they would be the biggest threat to us. So I like that. And again, Boston College history. There's history there, and I want to be able to play that game. And I think having them come in again, we could kick them in the teeth. In my opinion, there's really a big difference between Boston College and Duke recently. Difference is what, a game or two?
No,
I mean,
Duke's been awful about the last 3 to 4 years.
Okay, yeah, I probably went a little too far with that. But all I'm saying is,
before that, they were pretty good for a little while.
It's not the big. Again, I'm saying as far as against University of Miami, when Miami is rolling, is there really a big difference between the two teams?
Well, if Miami's rolling, there's not a difference. It doesn't matter. But
right.
The difference is that Duke is just awful. They're the worst team and have been the worst team for 3 or 4 years now. Boston College, unless something changes, they're pretty much going to go 6-6 or 7-5 every year. If you look at their records, the last 6, 7, 8 years, they're 7-5 or 6-6 every year.
Mark, should there be a private school conference in your opinion? Now, see, that would be tough only because it's so many spread all over. But what I mean by private school, let me verify. Should there be like a private school, like Ivy League brand of ball, to where your Dukes can play your Vanderbilts, can play your Boston Colleges, can play your Cal Berkeleys? Because I just don't see them ever being able to compete if they're not willing as an institution to invest the way that these other public institutions. I mean, Miami's a private school, but we invest and have a history of great football. I can't say that about some of those other schools I just robbed off. Cal has a little great history, but
Stanford,
not in the last 20. Stanford's fallen off big time too.
Sure. But they can be great. They can be really good. I'll say really good. Yeah, when I say BC is 6-6 or 7-5 every year, I mean it. This is their last 8 or 9 years. 6-6, 6-5, 6-7, 7-5, 7-6, 7-6, 3-9, 7-6, 7-6, 7-6. That's what they do every year.
And another thing, Mark, that may be their outcome, but they're always a tough out. I mean, you're going to out-athlete them, but they're going to be physical. They're not going to beat themselves. And Wisconsin has become a pretty good program, but that used to be Wisconsin, right? I mean, for a while there, it used to be kind of, but then, a coach that we said no to goes up there and makes them into what we have right now. Before we go, I got to throw this out there. Mark, how the hell do they just get to say we're leaving? Aren't you like contractually obligated to be in a conference for a bit? Like, how do you just get to say?
Yeah, they're going to pony up a ton of money to leave. Yeah, they're going to have to pay their way out of it. I don't know what those numbers are, but they're huge, I'm sure. They're going to have to cough up like $20 million to leave.
Miami, all I'm going to say is hear them out, see if the SEC is willing to hop on, hear them out. Because again, that is a serious point about monopoly. You're either in or you're not. And I would much rather us be in than not be in. So if we do get to a point where we have to make a decision on leaving, I want us to go to the SEC. But I think we have more success in the Big Ten. Just saying.
Sure. I just don't see Miami getting left out. I think I think the three schools that are the safest to the ACC are Miami, Clemson, and Florida State. I just can't imagine. I would think that they would be the next SEC targets. You know, they would have to add somebody else. They would have to go after 4. Maybe they'd like Virginia Tech or NC State. I don't know.
Notre Dame, you might have to join a conference, dude.
Yeah. What's
fine? And now you can't just come to the ACC. You got to go to the Big Ten where your behind belong.
It might be finally money, so much money that's going to push them to have to join a conference.
Imagine that now. All those times being blocked out of the Big Ten, and then you still had to go back with your head down, like, can you let me in? And now in the regular season, you're going to have to play Michigan, Michigan State. Purdue should come with them, just for the rivalry of that, too. And USC in the regular season, just as all conference games. Wow. Miami fans chanting SEC. I don't know, Mark. I don't know, Mark. Starting to feel a little weird.
It does. It does.
And then I'm going to say it again now before we end. Watch. We'll have a bunch of good news for us next time we're live. Watch. Something crazy has happened. And Miami and Tallahassee is in talks with the SEC. And the Florida Gators are pissed. Watch. I called it.
Okay. Falconer, appreciate your contributions. You know that. He says never SEC.
Oh, Falconer X changed their thing now? It's Falconer Jones?
All over the place.
Okay.
I don't know if Falconer's got 2 accounts or what he's got going on there, but Falconer, appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for all the contributions tonight. Thank you, everyone else. We'll be back next Thursday night, 8 o'clock Eastern Time with a Wholesome One. If we're a few minutes late, just keep in mind we're trying to coordinate schedules, and the Wholesome One hustles as fast as he can to get here. We want him to be safe, and we'll be back here next Thursday. Wholesome One. It's a good time.
Always appreciate it. God bless. Okay.